If you are a non-CDL box truck business owner operator, you want to watch this show because I'll be showing you very exciting ways to start making money right off the bat. It's really important to understand that I want to emphasize non-CDL box truck business owner operator, because with box truck you can actually have CDL, totally CDL or non-CDL. So the thing here is that you got to ask yourself first. And I don't care about the geography where you are at right now. If you whatever state you are, whatever city you are, you need to identify basically your niche. The thing is that if you are in the right industry, you can make money in as little as 1 week. And whether you are new or you are an existing owner operator, the thing here is that you really need to ask yourself what industry or what niche you want to go after. See, the whole thing is that basically you can actually do small niches like moving, helping people move, or going after high-end niches like doing reefer, for instance. You can do OTR. You can actually drive across states and actually deliver substances for local businesses. So basically you're doing B2B or B2C. The big question is, how do you position yourself? That's the first thing. So for you to make money, you got to ask yourself, where am I at in the competitive landscape? So what kind of value am I bringing? So because I have a box truck, the same way you have a box truck, the same way thousands of others have the same box truck in your area. But see, being a good driver, having the right vehicle is not enough. Okay, so you got to ask yourself, what am I bringing? So basically, you have a way. If you're an owner operator, you can be a delivery driver with your box truck, or you can also help with anything revolving around moving. See, the thing is that people are moving all the time. See, when we talk about making money with a box truck, you can be a delivery driver, or you can do moving. Moving, you have businesses moving stuff all the time, people moving stuff all the time. And the thing is that when we talk about delivery drivers and moving, those are not seasonal jobs. So if you're an owner operator, you are a box truck business owner operator, you want to really focus on those two things first: being a delivery driver and actually also adding another niche, which is basically helping when it comes to moving. You can do home moving, you can do a business moving, and so on and so forth. The possibilities are endless. Boss, welcome back to the show. It's really a pleasure to have you here. Make yourself comfortable. You are going to enjoy today's conversation. Really make money if you are a non-CDL box truck business operator is to really think about renting out or advertising on your box truck. See, when you rent out your box truck, you actually are now working, but you're making money. And the cool thing is that, as you know, if you're having empty miles, you're still paying insurance anyway. You're still paying other fixed costs because you have depreciation of the vehicle. So basically, if the vehicle is actually being rented out and you are generating revenue, now you might be thinking, well, this is small. This is like a small income. But hey, listen, income is income, and everything adds up. Okay, so if you're an owner operator right now, you're thinking about, how do I make money? Then you gotta really think about how you position yourself, and also think about advertising. You can advertise it on your own box truck. So you drive around town with somebody else's message. That's fine too. I mean, listen, that's fine, because at the end of the day, you have to actually make sure that you are monetizing your box truck, because it's either that. You see, the thing is that nationwide, the average box truck business owner operator is making like $30,000 to $45,000. But for you to generate more, for you to generate even more and go into the 6 digits category, you got to think about innovative ways to actually monetize your box truck. Because people talk about, you have apps, they're really delivery apps, blah, 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 blah. But those apps, you're not the only one. You have competition. You have thousands of folks that are signing up every single day to compete with you, to compete for loads on those apps. So how do you differentiate yourself? You can't just continue to be on apps. People talk about, you go to apps or you go to load boards. That's where you find loads, but everybody's doing it. So if you really want to survive in this industry, which is our goal, which is our wish for you, if that's what you want, of course, then if you want to survive in this industry as a hauler, then you need to have a different strategy. So think about advertising on your box truck. Think about renting out your box truck. Think about becoming a delivery driver, or think about actually doing mover jobs as well. So you have opportunities to actually make extra cash. The thing is that if you really want to make extra cash on a consistent basis, you got to look at your box truck if you're an owner operator, you got to look at it as a real business. Okay, real business means what? You got to diversify your sources of income, right? So basically, you can actually have. So you have when we talk about diversifying your sources of income. If you're an owner operator, you know what I mean. So basically, you want to have your own clients. You want to find your own clients. You want to go on load boards. You want to go on delivery apps. You also want to actually join networks of independent contractors. So, for instance, when you have roadie, for instance, you have a load up, for instance. You have a lot of them out there that actually kind of help you out. But the bottom line here is what? The bottom line is you need to actually diversify your sources of income and also your sources of client acquisition. So how do you acquire clients? Where do you find clients? So if you could go to all those delivery apps and try and compete and bid on those all the time. In other words, you have the app open 24/7. But at the end of the day, once you have a client or two or three or even 10 clients, you got to think about a strategy to solidify those clients, to retain those clients. It's all about really retaining them because that's going to help you actually solidify your non-CDL box truck business over time. Remember, it's cheaper to retain clients than to acquire one. It's cheaper to retain an existing client than to acquire one. So you want to think about that. So think about your strategy to retain your existing clients. And this means, and I'll talk about that later on. It's all about marketing. It's all about customer service. It's all about anticipating your client needs. What do they need? Because it's not just about I'm going to haul this loads. I'm just going to haul this load and deliver, and that's it. And I'm just going to get my paycheck, and that's it. So you live from paycheck to paycheck to paycheck. There is no strategy for consistency. There are no strategy for sustainability. You got to move into the sustainability zone, okay? Because at the end of the day, if you have to put food on the table for your family, you got to have a strategy whereby you know that you're making the same amount of cash at least, or even more every single month. You got to have some stability, and that's. Now let's talk about. So the thing is, if you're a non-CDL CDL box truck business owner operator, you're listening to me right now. You probably have thought about switching and working for someone, right? Basically, is it really worth it to be on your own? Chances are, it really depends. It depends on your area. It depends on your expertise, skill. So how long have you been driving box trucks? And do you have a CDL or non-CDL? And what kind of loads you want to go after? So what kind of loads you want to haul? Because if you are in a very competitive, cheap ass paying load load market, it's just better to work for someone else. But if you are in a niche market where you're getting paid on every load that you haul, it might make sense to actually really work for your own, basically be an owner operator. The thing here is that when you think about being an owner operator, besides all the expenses that come, you got to also think about whether or not you need to lease or buy the box truck. Okay, so it's one of those things where it really depends on your situation. It depends on your budget also. Basically, do you have 20 grand or 30 grand stashed somewhere, or do you have at least can you provide 10% or 20% of if you were to get a loan, they might ask you to provide 10% deposit to actually get the loan. Do you have that 10% left somewhere? And so this has to do with your financial life. But the thing is that overall, you really have to think about what really works for you. It's not just about what works for you financially, but also what works for you physically. You got to think about your family situation. Are you married? Do you have children? Do you want to do OTR? Do you want to be out of the house 5 days a week and actually get back on Friday or Saturday? So those are elements you need to really think about. So when you do your own brainstorming, you got to really think about that. Okay, so the thing is that if you actually if you're a box truck owner operator, you can accept or deny jobs as you see fit. You make your own hours. You don't have to explain why you didn't take that job. You can decide what kind of cargo goes into your truck and all the benefits of being your own boss, right? So the freedom too. Also, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We're talking about tips that I'm giving to non-CDL box truck business owner operators. The thing here is that when you are an owner operator, you always have the option to actually be on your own, be your own self, like your own boss, or actually hire others to kind of help you out. The thing is that if you are going to hire, if you're going to hire others to help you out, in other words, if you are going to manage a fleet of box trucks as opposed to just driving one box truck, you might need to actually upgrade your business, because probably if you're an owner operator, like most owner operators, they actually drive as sole proprietorships. But if you are going to hire others and you're going to be responsible for the payroll of others, the authorities at the federal level, but also at your state level, want you to have an EIN, want you to have a legit business, want you to file all the paperwork that is required when it comes to that. So we're talking about you contacting the state authorities to tell them, listen, I want to be a limited liability company. I want to be an S corporation. I want to be a C corporation, for instance. And then you also need to open bank accounts. You got to do a couple of things to sort of officialize. I don't even know if that's the word, but you need to formalize, if you will, your business, your status. Okay, because see, when we talk about non-CDL box truck business owner operator, you have the word business, but in reality, you just have a sole proprietorship. You have a one-person show, somebody who's just delivering from A to Z and making money, and then filing taxes and filing his Schedule C on Form 1040. But the thing is, if you have to actually run your business, then you have to really think about how to position yourself to make sure that you are capturing the proper aspect of the law, the proper aspects of the law. So you want to, in other words, you want to comply with the law. And you can only do this if you are doing an analysis of your geography, for instance. So where you are hauling your box truck loads, the kind of clients you're going after. Are you going for B2B? Are you going for B2C? You also want to think about your rapport, if you will, with brokers and in some cases dispatchers. So everything really counts. What you want to do here is that if you want to actually grow as a non-CDL box truck business owner operator, you need to actually expand your business constantly. So we're talking here about basically, see, when we talk about business expansion, you have vertical expansion and you have horizontal expansion. So vertical expansion just means that you are deepening the same niche you're currently in. So you are proposing more services, you are being more available, and so on and so forth. That's the vertical expansion. You also think about the horizontal expansion, which means you are expanding your customer base. You're expanding, let's say, really, you're expanding all kinds of stuff. So the thing is that you got to ask yourself, as a non-CDL box truck business owner operator, how do I want to grow my business? Okay, but first of all, make sure that you are passionate about what you do, right? I mean, you gotta love it. Otherwise, you can't really survive those late nights or those early mornings where you are on the road actually delivering the next load to a client. If you don't like this job that you're in, you're not going to survive. So it's one of those things you gotta ask yourself: Am I hitting the right points here? Am I hitting the right the right agenda? Because the whole thing here is that you want to actually find the situation where you're constantly in contact with folks who matter in the industry. So we're talking about, again, I want to insist on them. Load board managers. You have logistics operations managers. You want to have, for instance, dispatchers, freight brokers. Those are the power brokers, literally, in the non-CDL box truck business. Okay, so again, but everything goes back to your geography, though. The competition in Atlanta is not the same thing as what you have in Dover, Delaware. I mean, really, the competition is totally different. But you're gonna have to accustom yourself. You're gonna have to basically find yourself the right strategy that works for you in terms of the loads you're hauling, in terms of the timing of the loads you're hauling. So do you want to work late nights and early mornings or not? You also need to think about the diversity of loads that you're hauling. Boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about basically tips for non-CDL box truck business owner operators. thing is that when we talk about making money with your box truck, it's really you got to be a little creative, right? And I think that's what I said earlier when I said at the end of the day, you got to really think about your industry and see exactly what kind of strategy you need to put in place to make sure that you're making day in and day out. Because at the end of the day, you have all kinds of strategies that you can put in place. So if you have a box truck right now, you can basically actually, you can basically do delivery services. I think I said this before right off the bat. You can do moving services. You can advertise on your own box truck. You can do hauling services. Also, hauling services are different from delivery services. This is really important. Hauling services are more like sophisticated. You have towing services. You can also be a box truck independent contractor. You can also do junk removal. So the thing is that you have a constellation of possibilities when it comes to you owning a box truck. What I want to say here is that when we talk about basically let's say improving your prospects for making money for box trucks, one area that's really important, a lot of box truck owners don't think about that. You need to think about hiring box truck owner operators. In other words, you can basically partner up with the other owner operators in your industry, or you can just hire them. In other words, if you're more experienced than them, then yeah. Now, the question is, how are you going to structure your business to hire other owner operators? It really depends on the opportunities you see in the market, right? If you see opportunities in the market and you have a lot of solid, not a lot, but let's say you have 1, 2, or 3 solid clients that want you to really haul for them on a full-time basis, and you know that you can't really do this by yourself, then you might want to invite other players. But by doing that, you are expanding your operational reach, and you're actually boosting your chances of making the money in the long run. So this is really what it is. Okay, the bottom line here is that if you are a non-CDL box truck business owner operator, you have to constantly sort of challenge the status quo and come up with new ideas and new resolutions. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. In today's conversation, I just spoke to you briefly about, let's say a non-CDL box truck owner, business owner operator. How do you actually make money while navigating a very sophisticated landscape? Thank you so much. God bless you. I'll see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.